Hello everyone. Today we're taking a look at Overheat, another team member of Shoe is Hot. Just looking at Overheat, it's pretty obvious what it was meant for. It's clearly a hurdler, but it did have some other niche roles. Unlike Shokyaku and Wings of Fire, Overheat has quite a specialist role. Its primary contests are Zook hurdles and Zook ball. But just because it only has 2 contests doesn't mean it was a simple task to build. In fact, I would say it was the trickiest Zook to build. Thanks to it only having 2 primary contests, its requirements are quite narrow. It needs to be good at getting over things, but we're also going to add stability here as it's a unique challenge for hurdlers. It needs good contact with the ball in Zook ball specifically, and, as usual, speed. The first thing that sticks out about Overheat is it has 3-part legs. While this isn't necessary, as Zooks with 2-part legs can handle hurdles just fine, it makes the task considerably easier, and Overheat can very reliably clear the worst obstacles. It shouldn't be a surprise that we want our Zook high off the ground for hurdles, but this is where the real challenge begins. For any other type of contest, having a low centre of gravity is a virtue. It's the hallmark of stability. But we don't have this luxury when building a hurdler, so it can be very tough to build a Zook that's both stable and can clear the tallest obstacles. A problem you may encounter when you make a Zook high off the ground like this is it tips on its back when it starts moving. This is down to the high centre of mass wanting to stay in the same place while the lower half is moving forwards. One easy way to mitigate this is to give the Zook a long body, making it a much greater task to tip the Zook back. Just don't make it so long that it sticks off the edge of the table. If you can afford it, adding extra weight towards the front of the Zook can also help. A good example of this is this Zook, made by Platypus. 3-part legs like this are very frail, so we have to keep Overheat's weight quite low, which is why it's flat. You will also notice that the legs are grouped at the ends of the Zook. That's because we want to ensure the back and front are supported at all times to keep the Zook level and stable. Let's take a look at the motion. Unsurprisingly, its movement path reaches very high. It's no good having a Zook high off the ground if its legs aren't going to step over the obstacles. A big downside of 3-part legs is they consume a lot of components. With a component limit of 35, we can only have 5 pairs of legs maximum. This is not good when they need to support the Zook high off the ground and makes it liable to drop its body too much. The extra IK points help support the Zook by making the legs spend more time on the ground. Hurdlers are often naturally good at making contact with the ball in Zook ball, and Overheat is no exception. The main reason for this is their height. A Zook that hits the ball too low down will chip it, losing power, and even worse, can send it off course. A good, or bad, example of this is Shokyaku. Its speed and power would make it a good candidate, but its low to the ground and sloped front end mean it rarely makes good contact. For the reason it's good at marbles, it's bad at Zook ball. While Overheat is not very strong, it makes up for it with very good contact, thanks to its height, hitting the ball almost in the centre. It also has a couple of parts added to improve the catchment area and protect the legs, which can help prevent kicking the ball in an unexpected direction. Its naturally high width also helps catching the ball as the goalie. There isn't much to say about speed here. It's not surprising that a Zook with such long stride will be pretty fast. What's more, when its legs get a grip on a hurdle, it can pull itself even faster. A small issue you might encounter when building a hurdler is the startup speed, especially if the Zook has some weight to it. This is because long legs are pretty weak, so acceleration can be tough for them. Once again, extra IK points help here thanks to the extra grip. It does probably lower the Zook's maximum speed, but I think the added acceleration and stability are worth it. I claimed I rounded off my team Zooks from more specialised designs in the team overview, but Overheat is somewhat of an exception. Instead, I doubled down on its hurdling ability for a couple of reasons. One is the danger of the first hurdle. Normally, when rounding off a Zook, you lose a bit of the specialist performance in exchange for gains elsewhere. In the case of hurdles, however, the cost can be quite high. If your Zook cannot clear the first hurdle when it reaches it, it will lose all its momentum and have to wait until it's at a height it can clear. Since the first hurdle is the most difficult, if one Zook clears it first try and the other doesn't, the game is already decided. As Zook hurdles doesn't have much synergy with other contests, it would take a lot of rounding to make Overheat viable for them. That is, except for one, which actually benefits from increased hurdling ability, which we'll talk about right now. Since Overheat had quite a specialist role, it wasn't very good at most other contests. Its frail and its large frame makes it liable to get caught on obstacles. That being said, it is second choice for a couple of contests. Firstly, Zook in a china shop. With its long legs and large frame, it may seem like a great option for china shop, but its high width and length made it likely to fall off the table. Still, it could reliably do some early damage. Now for the interesting one, Zook cubes. By doubling down on its hurdling ability, Overheat unlocked a new path in Zook cubes, going over instead of through them. This has a big advantage in that the Zook doesn't have to invest in strength or momentum to move the cubes out of the way. So in theory, the Zook can do it faster. And Overheat certainly could get to the end quickly, and it made for very fun matches. It wasn't too reliable though, as it often kicked and tripped over the cubes. It is possible to make hurdlers better at this, but with the component limit, I struggled to improve it. Under a different rule set, I may have invested more components to make it more reliable at cubes, and even make it the first choice. Having such few primary and secondary choices actually had a benefit in that it maximised the chance Overheat was available as a choice for Zook hurdles. All my other Zooks had next to no ground clearance, so I would have been a sitting duck if hurdles came up and Overheat had already been chosen for another contest. Still, that's more of a weakness in the team overall, and I shouldn't have relied on that. I mentioned in Shokyaku's breakdown a type of Zook I called a chunky hurdler. A hurdler with sufficient weight to make an impact in other contests. In particular, Zook in a china shop, where I had no answer to it. I could have made Overheat's design similar to be a match, so I thought I'd go over some of the benefits of each design. As mentioned, the chunky hurdler is an excellent approach to china shop, being strong enough to knock over the sticks and having no trouble getting over them. Having higher momentum and long legs still makes it liable to fall off the table though. It also has potential in other contests like marbles and smash as a solid backup. The extra power also helps it in Zook ball if that's part of its role. In favour of Overheat's design, a more dedicated hurdler. With greater stride and ground clearance, it's probably going to do better in Zook hurdles. And it has the opportunity to take on Zook cubes in a fun and fast way. Overall, I think the chunky hurdler is the more useful design, but one of the major reasons I built Overheat the way it is was for fun viewing. I think its design better fit the dynamic, passionate theme of the team, and was a fun opportunity to use 3-part legs, which are rarely viable for contests. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to check out Overheat for yourself, you can find and download it on zooklabs.com.